November 8, 1942. Sidi Bou Zid, Tunisia, North Africa. The morning sun stretched long shadows across the rocky valley as Obergefreiter Hartmann pressed his back against a limestone outcrop. His carabiner 98 Kurz felt solid in his hands, the weight of it familiar after 3 years of war. The bolt was smooth, worn from use across Poland, France, and the frozen steppes of Russia. Load 1 round. Pull back the bolt handle. Push forward. Close. Fire. This was the rhythm he knew, the rhythm that had conquered half of Europe. 100 meters across the dusty terrain, American infantry advanced in a ragged skirmish line. Hartmann had been briefed about these Americans, inexperienced, soft. Their equipment was supposedly mass-produced garbage, churned out by factories that prioritized quantity over quality. Their training was inadequate. They were civilians in uniform, untested by real war. What happened in the next 90 seconds would shatter every assumption Hartmann carried about American capabilities. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. The Americans opened fire. The sound was unlike anything Hartmann had experienced in 3 years of combat. Not the familiar crack, pause, crack of bolt-action rifles echoing across battlefields from Warsaw to Stalingrad. This was different. A sustained roar of semi-automatic fire that simply didn't stop. 8 rounds fired as fast as a trigger could be pulled. No pausing to work a bolt. No interruption in the rhythm of fire. Just continuous, aimed shots hammering his position. Hartmann fired once, worked his bolt. The American soldier directly opposite him had already emptied his entire 8-round clip and was reloading. Hartmann fired again, cycled the bolt. By the time he acquired his target for a 3rd shot, the American had inserted a fresh clip and was firing again. This was the M1 Garand rifle, and it was about to systematically demolish everything German military doctrine taught about infantry combat. The psychological impact would prove as devastating as the weapon's actual firepower. This wasn't merely a story of technological advantage. It was about complete tactical transformation forced upon an entire military establishment that believed it possessed the finest infantry rifles in the world. The German confidence in their infantry weapons stretched back through military tradition spanning centuries. The carabiner 98 Kurz, adopted on June 21, 1935, represented the culmination of decades of bolt-action rifle development, a direct descendant of the legendary Gewehr 98 that had served in the First World War. The Kar 98K embodied everything a military rifle should be, according to German military philosophy. Accurate out to 550 yards with iron sights. Reliable in the mud of Flanders and the frozen hell of the Eastern Front. Simple enough for conscripts to maintain with minimal training. It fired the powerful 7.92 by 57 mm Mauser cartridge, a round capable of penetrating substantial cover and delivering devastating wounds. In trained hands, the Kar 98K had conquered most of Europe. German infantry doctrine emphasized aimed fire from prepared positions. Training stressed the importance of each round being carefully placed. Marksmanship was paramount. Fire discipline was drilled into every soldier. A skilled German infantryman could fire approximately 15 aimed rounds per minute from his Kar 98K, working the bolt with practiced efficiency that became almost automatic. Lift the bolt handle. Pull back. Eject the spent casing. Push forward. Chamber a new round. Lock down. Aim. Fire. Repeat. This rate of fire seemed perfectly adequate when German forces faced Polish, French, and British troops armed with similar bolt-action weapons. The British Lee Enfield, with its 10-round magazine, could fire somewhat faster, perhaps 18 rounds per minute in expert hands. But German officers considered this a trade-off against accuracy. The Lee Enfield's cock on closing action made it faster but supposedly less precise. German soldiers were taught that carefully aimed fire mattered more than volume. When American forces entered major combat operations in North Africa in November 1942 during Operation Torch, German intelligence had prepared comprehensive assessments of American equipment. These reports painted a consistent picture. Industrial abundance, coupled with military inexperience. American infantry, the assessments claimed, relied too heavily on material superiority and too little on tactical skill. They were wealthy amateurs facing professional warriors. The M1 Garand appeared in these intelligence reports as a semi-automatic rifle of interest but not particular concern. German analysts noted its 8-round capacity loaded via an en-bloc clip. They observed its self-loading mechanism that eliminated the need for manual cycling between shots, but they also pointed out it was heavier than the Kar 98K, 9.5 pounds compared to 8.2. The general assessment concluded that while the M1 offered higher volume of fire, it likely sacrificed the accuracy and reliability inherent in simpler bolt-action mechanisms. German officers believed semi-automatic rifles represented interesting technology but questionable military doctrine. A semi-automatic action meant more parts to break, more complexity to maintain in field conditions. German military philosophy valued simplicity and ruggedness. The Mauser action had proven itself across 2 world wars. Why fix what wasn't broken? Besides, truly decisive firepower came from machine guns, not individual rifles. Yet, American forces had already been using the M1 Garand in combat since December 8, 1941, when Japanese forces invaded the Philippines the morning after Pearl Harbor. M1 rifles, shipped between August and November 1941, had equipped elements of the U.S. Army's Philippine Division and the elite Philippine Scouts. These soldiers used their Garands effectively enough that Japanese troops reported facing what they believed was machine gun fire from American positions. General Douglas MacArthur, trapped on Bataan, cabled in February 1942 praising the rifle's performance. Under combat conditions, it operated with no mechanical defects. When used in foxholes, it did not develop stoppages from dust or dirt. It had been in almost constant action for as much as a week without cleaning or lubrication. This glowing combat report reached Washington but not German intelligence headquarters in Berlin. By the time German forces faced Americans in North Africa at places like Sidi Bouzid and Kasserine Pass, the M1 Garand had proven itself through nearly a year of brutal jungle combat. American soldiers had learned to trust the weapon. They understood its capabilities. They knew exactly what it could do. The reality encountered on North African plains shattered German assumptions with mathematical precision. Hartmann's unit, part of the 5th Panzer Army, had established defensive positions, expecting to stop American advances with disciplined aimed fire. Standard German defensive doctrine. Machine guns provided suppressive fire. Riflemen engaged targets with careful shots. When Americans attacked, the volume of return fire was staggering. Not machine gun fire, which Germans expected and knew how to suppress. Rifle fire. Continuous, sustained rifle fire that never seemed to pause. German soldiers would fire, work their bolts, reacquire their targets, fire again, perhaps 15 rounds per minute from the best-trained soldiers. But each American was firing 30 to 40 aimed rounds per minute. Every single American rifleman possessed firepower approaching that of a German soldier with a submachine gun. The Germans could not suppress them. Every time they raised their heads to fire, multiple rounds came back immediately. The mathematics were undeniable and utterly damning. In a 2-minute engagement, a German soldier with a Kar 98K might fire 30 aimed rounds. An American with an M1 Garand could fire 80 rounds in the same period. More critically, the German soldier had to break his sight picture after each shot, work the bolt, reacquire his target, aim again, fire. The American simply pulled the trigger 8 times in rapid succession, his aim barely disturbed by the rifle's modest recoil. The M1 Garand's semi-automatic operation relied on a gas-operated system perfected through years of development. As a round fired, propellant gases were diverted through a port in the barrel into a cylinder below. This gas drove a piston that cycled the action automatically, ejecting the spent cartridge and chambering a new round from the clip. The entire process took a fraction of a second. The rifle's action remained closed between shots, maintaining barrel-to-sight alignment. Accuracy did not suffer despite rapid fire. Testing at Springfield Armory demonstrated the M1 could maintain 4 minutes of angle groups, 4 inches of spread at 100 yards. Many production rifles performed significantly better. This accuracy matched or exceeded bolt-action rifles while delivering 3 times the rate of fire. It was the combination that proved devastating. Speed without sacrificing precision. General George S. Patton, in a letter dated January 26, 1945, to Major General Levin H. Campbell, Jr., Chief of Ordnance, wrote words that would become legendary. "In my opinion, the M1 rifle is the greatest battle implement ever devised." This was not hyperbole from a general known for dramatic pronouncements. Patton understood the rifle had fundamentally changed infantry combat at the most basic level. A soldier armed with an M1 Garand possessed firepower equivalent to 3 riflemen with bolt-action weapons, without sacrificing accuracy, reliability, or effective range. This advantage, multiplied across an entire infantry company, became overwhelming. By mid-1943, the United States Army was equipping entire divisions exclusively with M1 Garands. During World War II, from 1937 through 1945, approximately 4,040,802 M1 rifles were manufactured for wartime service. Springfield Armory in Massachusetts produced 3,526,922 rifles. Winchester Repeating Arms in Connecticut manufactured 513,880. Production reached such levels that by D-Day in June 1944, virtually every American rifleman carried an M1 Garand. This represented an unprecedented achievement. An entire military force, numbering in the millions, armed with semi-automatic rifles, while their opponents still carried bolt-action weapons designed before the First World War. The M1 Garand's technical specifications told only part of the story. The rifle fired the .30-06 Springfield cartridge, a powerful round that had served American forces since 1906. The cartridge propelled a 150-grain bullet at approximately 2,800 feet per second, delivering substantial energy at extended ranges. Effective range matched or exceeded the Kar 98K. The rifle fed from an 8-round N-block clip, a metal clip inserted directly into the rifle's action from above. When the last round fired, the clip automatically ejected with a distinctive metallic ping. Some soldiers feared this sound might alert enemies that they were reloading. Combat veterans universally reported that battle noise made the kerr inaudible beyond a few yards. Enemy soldiers could not hear it over the din of combat. The rifle's reliability became legendary among troops who carried it. Exposed to North African dust that clogged mechanisms, Italian mud that fouled actions, Northern European cold that froze lubricants, and later Korean winter conditions that stopped other weapons, the M1 functioned with minimal maintenance. Field stripping required no tools. The operating rod and bolt could be removed for cleaning in minutes, then reassembled quickly, even by soldiers wearing gloves. German observers consistently noted this reliability with a mixture of respect and frustration. German defensive doctrine relied heavily on machine guns providing suppressive fire, while riflemen engaged targets with careful, aimed shots. The MG-34 and later MG-42 machine guns were excellent weapons, among the finest of the war. But they required crews of 3 to 4 men, ammunition bearers to supply them, and were vulnerable when identified by enemy artillery or air strikes. The M1 Garand changed this tactical calculus completely. American infantry squads, with each rifleman armed with a Garand, could generate combined firepower approaching that of German machine gun teams. More critically, this firepower was distributed across the entire squad. Suppressing an American squad required suppressing 8 to 9 individually armed soldiers, each capable of delivering rapid, accurate fire. One could not simply suppress the machine gun and neutralize the squad. The Italian campaign from September 1943 onward provided German forces extensive, painful experience fighting American troops. From the Salerno landings through the brutal mountain fighting toward Rome, from Anzio to the Gothic line, German infantry found themselves consistently outshot by American riflemen. Even when Germans held superior defensive positions with clear fields of fire, American rifle fire was overwhelming. A. Captured March 1944 report from the 94th Infantry Division, found after Rome fell, noted with unusual candor that encounters with American infantry typically resulted in Germans being pinned down by rifle fire. Even when Germans held superior positions with excellent cover, the report recommended increased machine gun allocation to compensate for the American advantage in infantry firepower. But Germany simply could not produce enough machine guns to offset the basic firepower disparity at the rifle level. The German military establishment recognized the problem and attempted solutions. The G41, introduced in 1941, was Germany's first serious attempt at a semi-automatic infantry rifle. Two competing designs emerged: the G41M from Mauser and G41W from Walther. Both proved deeply flawed from the start. German specifications mandated that no gas port be drilled in the barrel, fearing premature wear would reduce accuracy. This forced designers to use complex gas trap systems mounted at the muzzle to capture propellant gases. These systems proved unreliable, fouling easily with carbon buildup and adding unnecessary weight. The rifles were complicated to manufacture, requiring skilled labor and difficult to maintain in field conditions. Production remained extremely limited, with estimates ranging from 6,000 to 15,000 total units produced before both designs were abandoned as failures. German designers eventually studied captured Soviet SVT-40 rifles and reluctantly acknowledged that the gas port system they had rejected actually worked better than their gas trap design. The result was the G43, introduced in October 1943. This weapon incorporated a simpler gas system drilled directly into the barrel and used a detachable 10-round magazine. It was lighter than the G41 series and more reliable. Production totaled approximately 42,713 rifles by war's end, with about 53,435 additional units fitted with telescopic sights for use by designated marksmen. The G43 was capable and appreciated by soldiers fortunate enough to receive one. However, it arrived too late and in far too few numbers to matter strategically. For every 50 Kar 98K rifles produced, only one G43 was manufactured. The vast majority of German infantry continued carrying bolt-action rifles until the war's end in May 1945. Even soldiers who received the G43 found it was not equivalent to the M1 Garand. The German rifle, while effective, was more complicated, more difficult to maintain in field conditions, and suffered from parts availability issues, as German industry came under increasing strain from Allied bombing. The fundamental problem was that Germany had entered war without an effective semi-automatic infantry rifle and never caught up. American industrial capacity and military foresight had created an unbridgeable gap. By the time Germany attempted to field semi-automatic rifles in meaningful numbers, American factories had already produced millions of M1 Garands. The impact of the M1 Garand extended far beyond simple firepower statistics. The rifle changed how American infantry fought at the most fundamental level. Training emphasized rapid target acquisition and continuous fire. American infantry tactics assumed every rifleman could put substantial fire on target quickly. Fire superiority was not dependent on machine guns alone. Squads advanced using fire and maneuver, with half the squad laying down, covering fire, while the other half moved forward. The volume of fire from M1 Garands made this tactic devastatingly effective. The covering element could suppress enemy positions through sheer weight of fire, allowing the maneuver element to close with and destroy the enemy. At Omaha Beach on June 6, 1944, the 352nd Infantry Division defended fortified positions on the bluffs overlooking the beach. This full-strength division of 12,020 men occupied what should have been nearly impregnable positions. Excellent fields of fire, reinforced concrete emplacements, interlocking machine gun positions. minefields and obstacles covering the beach approaches. When American infantry finally reached the base of the bluffs after hours of desperate fighting in the surf, their return fire was overwhelming. Every man had a semi-automatic rifle and used it continuously. German defenders could not maintain aimed fire because incoming rounds were too numerous. Machine gun crews were targeted by dozens of rifles simultaneously. Individual German soldiers attempting to engage Americans were immediately suppressed by multiple rifles. The Normandy fighting in June and July 1944 brought the firepower disparity into sharp relief. In the confined bocage terrain where combat occurred at ranges under 100 meters, traditional German emphasis on long-range marksmanship became irrelevant. What mattered was volume of accurate fire delivered quickly at close ranges. Traditional German tactics of a few riflemen providing covering fire, while others maneuvered, no longer worked effectively. Covering fire from M1 Garands was too heavy, too sustained. It forced German troops to keep their heads down. German soldiers could not return effective fire while suppressed. The tactical advantage Americans gained was decisive in countless small unit actions throughout the hedgerows of Normandy. Statistical analysis conducted by the U.S. Army's Historical Division after the war, examining after-action reports and casualty data from thousands of engagements, revealed that American infantry squads inflicted casualties at rates significantly higher than expected based purely on their numbers. While many factors contributed, including artillery support, air superiority, and superior logistics, the consistent advantage in close-range infantry firefights pointed clearly to the M1 Garand's role. American infantrymen could reasonably expect to win firefight engagements, even when outnumbered, provided they had adequate cover and sufficient ammunition. This confidence in their weapons affected morale and tactical aggressiveness. American units attacked more willingly because they understood their firepower advantage at the infantry level. The German Army's ultimate solution came in the form of the Sturmgewehr 44, the world's first true assault rifle. Firing an intermediate cartridge, the 7.92 by 33 mm Kurz, from a 30-round magazine in either semi-automatic or fully automatic mode, the St. G44 represented revolutionary thinking about infantry weapons. Approximately 425,977 were produced, mostly in 1944 and 1945. But like the G43, the St. G44 arrived too late and in insufficient numbers. Most German infantry never saw one. Those who did often lacked adequate ammunition, as Germany's industrial capacity crumbled under Allied bombing. The M1 Garand's technical evolution began long before World War II erupted in Europe. John Cantius Garand, born January 1, 1888, in Saint-Rémy, Quebec, Canada, moved to the United States with his family in 1899 after his mother died. He began working at Springfield Armory on November 4, 1919, devoting nearly 2 decades to perfecting his semi-automatic rifle design. Early prototypes used different operating systems and calibers. The U.S. Army originally favored a .276 caliber cartridge, offering better ballistics than .30-06. But General Douglas MacArthur, then Army Chief of Staff, insisted in 1932 on retaining .30-06 to utilize existing ammunition stocks numbering in the hundreds of millions of rounds and maintain compatibility with machine guns. This decision delayed adoption but ultimately proved sound. Garand continued refining his design through the early 1930s. The rifle underwent extensive testing at Aberdeen Proving Ground and Springfield Armory. Problems were methodically identified and corrected. The gas system evolved from an early gas trap design, prone to fouling, to a simpler, more reliable gas port system. The trigger mechanism was refined through multiple iterations. The stock design was improved for better ergonomics and durability. On January 9, 1936, the rifle was officially adopted as the United States Rifle, caliber .30, M1. Initial production was slow, with only a few thousand rifles manufactured in 1937 and 1938, as production methods were perfected. Production accelerated dramatically as war loomed across both oceans, reaching 600 rifles per day by January 1941. The M1 Garand served American forces through World War II, the Korean War, and into the early years of Vietnam. It was not officially replaced as the standard service rifle until the M14 was adopted in 1957, with formal designation as replacement on March 26, 1958. First deliveries to troops began July 1959. Full transition across all regular Army units took until 1961. Even then, M1 Garands remained in use with Reserve and National Guard units into the 1970s. The M1 Garand's psychological impact on German soldiers manifested in profound and lasting ways. The weapon represented technological superiority that contradicted everything they had been taught about American military capabilities. German soldiers had been conditioned by years of propaganda to believe in Germanic technological and tactical superiority. Germany produced the finest tanks, the best aircraft, the most advanced weapons. When individual German infantrymen, properly equipped with Kar 98K rifles and well-trained in their use, found themselves unable to win firefights against individual American infantrymen, this myth of superiority began to collapse. The weapon each enemy soldier carried made an undeniable, measurable difference. Americans were not superior soldiers. They simply had superior rifles. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. After World War II, detailed studies of small unit actions consistently showed American infantry inflicting disproportionate casualties in firefights. The rifle each soldier carried made measurable difference in combat effectiveness. American casualties from German rifle fire were proportionally lower throughout the war, another indicator of the M1's effectiveness in suppressing enemy positions and winning firefights. German attempts to compensate through superior tactics and better defensive positioning worked only partially and temporarily. Eventually, the sheer volume of aimed fire from American infantry, advancing with M1 Garands, would find targets, suppress defensive positions, and enable American maneuver elements to close with and destroy German positions. Tactical skill could not overcome a 3-to-1 firepower disadvantage at the individual rifle level. The M1 Garand's legacy extends far beyond World War II into modern firearms development. The principle it demonstrated that infantry benefit from self-loading rifles, increasing their rate of fire without sacrificing accuracy, became foundational to all post-war weapon development. Every modern infantry rifle from the Soviet AK-47 to the American M16 to current assault rifles owes conceptual debt to the M1 Garand. It proved conclusively that semi-automatic operation was not just feasible for military rifles, but absolutely essential. No modern military would ever again equip its infantry primarily with bolt-action rifles. The age of the bolt-action as a primary infantry weapon ended with World War II, and the M1 Garand deserved much of the credit for this transformation. The story of German infantry encountering American forces armed with M1 Garands represents a moment when technological advantage met traditional military excellence and demonstrated that superior technology matters profoundly in warfare. German infantry training was excellent by any objective measure. Their tactical doctrine was sophisticated and battle-tested. Individual soldier quality was high, but excellence with inferior weapons produces inferior results on the battlefield. The M1 Garand gave American infantrymen a tool that allowed them to fight effectively even when outnumbered, to win firefights even when facing veteran troops with years of combat experience, to advance against fortified positions that should have been nearly impregnable, from the Philippines to North Africa, from Sicily to Normandy, from the hedgerows to the Rhine, from the Battle of the Bulge to the final conquest of Germany, the M1 Garand served faithfully and effectively. It earned its reputation as one of the finest military rifles ever designed. General Patton's famous praise was fully justified by the weapon's performance across multiple theaters and years of brutal combat. German soldiers learned through hard, painful experience on battlefields spanning 3 continents, that American infantry firepower represented a fundamental tactical challenge their bolt-action rifles could not overcome. The M1 Garand demonstrated conclusively that warfare had entered a new era. The days of massed infantry, armed with bolt-action rifles firing carefully, aimed single shots were over. Semi-automatic rifles were the future of infantry combat, and the M1 Garand made this reality clear to militaries worldwide. German infantry, brave and well-trained as they were, fought with equipment that put them at a fundamental disadvantage in the most basic infantry task, shooting the enemy before the enemy shoots you. The mathematics remained constant and unchangeable throughout the war. In the time required for a German soldier to fire 3 carefully aimed shots from his Kar 98K, working his bolt between each shot, an American soldier with his M1 Garand could fire 8 rounds without interruption. When both soldiers were equally trained and skilled, the American would hit 2 to 3 times as many targets in any given engagement. In squad-level engagements, this difference became overwhelming and decisive. The M1 Garand gave American infantry numerical superiority in firepower, even when German forces outnumbered them in actual soldiers. 8 Americans with M1 Garands could generate more sustained fire than 12 Germans with Kar 98K rifles. This mathematical reality shaped countless tactical engagements throughout the war. German military theorists, studying their nation's defeat in the post-war period, consistently identified the firepower disparity at the infantry level as critical. Former General der Panzertruppen Hasso von Manteuffel, who commanded the 5th Panzer Army during the Battle of the Bulge beginning December 16, 1944, wrote in his post-war memoirs that American infantry firepower exceeded German infantry firepower even when German forces held carefully prepared defensive positions with superior fields of fire. The human cost of this firepower imbalance appeared starkly in casualty statistics. While many factors affected casualty rates, including artillery, air power, tactics, terrain, and logistics, studies of small unit actions consistently showed American infantry inflicting disproportionate casualties in close-range firefights. The rifle each soldier carried made measurable, quantifiable difference in survival and mission success. German casualties from American rifle fire were significant and steady throughout the war in every theater where American and German forces engaged. The M1 Garand deserved substantial credit for American tactical success at the infantry level. In the final analysis, the M1 Garand's impact on World War II extended far beyond its technical specifications or production numbers. It represented American industrial foresight, engineering excellence, and commitment to providing superior equipment to soldiers. While Germany struggled with complex semi-automatic rifle programs that never reached fruition in meaningful numbers, America had equipped its entire military with proven, reliable semi-automatic rifles even before entering the war. This advantage, multiplied across millions of soldiers and thousands of engagements, contributed materially to Allied victory. The distinctive sound of an M1 Garand firing the sharp crack of the .30-06 cartridge, the metallic clang of its clip ejecting, the sight of American infantry advancing with rifles at the ready, these became synonymous with Allied victory in both Europe and the Pacific. German soldiers learned to recognize and respect that sound, knowing it meant they faced opponents who could deliver overwhelming firepower quickly and accurately. The M1 Garand was indeed, as Patton declared, the greatest battle implement ever devised. Its superiority over the Kar 98K was demonstrated conclusively on battlefields from 1941 through 1945. The rifle did not win the war alone. Victory required combined arms coordination, air superiority, industrial might, superior logistics, and the courage of millions of soldiers, sailors, airmen, and marines. But at the squad level, where soldiers actually fought and died, where wars are ultimately won or lost, the M1 Garand provided clear and measurable advantage that German infantry could not effectively counter. That advantage made the difference in countless engagements, saved American lives, and helped bring the war to a swifter conclusion than might otherwise have occurred. Young men came home to their families because the rifle they carried was superior to the rifle their enemy carried. The M1 Garand stands as testament to what properly designed military equipment can achieve when nations commit to providing soldiers with the best possible tools. It proved that investing in soldier capabilities, giving them superior weapons, pays dividends in combat effectiveness and mission success. The rifle served the American military for over 2 decades, equipping soldiers in 3 major conflicts and numerous smaller engagements. Its influence on subsequent rifle design continues to this day. For German infantry who faced it in combat from Tunisia to the Elbe River, the M1 Garand represented an unpleasant but undeniable lesson in technological reality. Superior equipment in skilled hands makes profound difference in the outcome of battle. German soldiers entered the war, believing their weapons and training were the finest in the world. The M1 Garand taught them otherwise, one firefight at a time. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now, and don't forget to subscribe.